Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Wine. Welcome back to art class. Today in class, we are going to be creating a design onto a clay tile. There are going to be a lot of vocabulary words that you need to learn today. So you're going to get this vocabulary word bank sheet that's going to help you see and learn some of our clay vocabulary. The first word that you see in the pictures is a tile. So a tile is a flat slab of clay, usually about 1/4 of an inch thick or so. And when I think of a clay tile, I usually think of a square shape. I am going to use a rolling pin to create this tile for you. So you're going to get this tile today, and that's what you're going to be working on. Then your job is simply to use a different variety of tools to create a design on your tile. You can use a pencil to draw. And when you draw on your tile, you want to think about what different kinds of lines and shapes we've been talking about in our animal unit so far, and what kind of lines and shapes you could draw on your tile. You can also use your fingers to pinch and pull the clay. So that's what I'm actually going to start demonstrating with. I think on my clay tile, I'm going to have maybe just like a little row or a few little places where I pinch and pull some pieces of the clay. I'm going to zoom in just a bit so you can really see what my fingers are doing. And all I have to do is literally just take my fingers and kind of pinch that clay together. And you can see when I do that, it makes a little raised area on the clay. I could pinch and pull the other way as well. I have to be careful because my clay is pretty thin and I don't want to go too deep into the clay. I don't want to end up cutting a hole in it. So maybe I'm just going to do that 3 different times, like a little row of those. So I'm just pinching and pulling. I don't want it to be too sharp, just a little raised area. It's like a tiny, tiny little bump on my clay. So that's what it looks like when I pinch and pull the clay. You can see it creates those tiny little bumps on the clay. Now, one thing I noticed that happened when I pinch and pull the clay is it's a little bit rough around those edges. I can use my fingers to smooth that down, but if I want to make it really, really smooth, I can use a little bit of water to smooth that area. So I can take one finger, dip it in the water, just one finger, and then I can use that finger to really slide and glide across the clay. It gets a little slimy at first, but then I can make that area super, super smooth. And I can do that every place. So dipping my finger back in, getting a little water. So every place that I pinched and pulled and it's a little rough around those edges, I can use the water to smooth that down. So now those areas that I pinched and pulled are bumpy, but they're very smooth. I can also use different kinds of tools to create different kinds of textures. So at your tables, you're going to have a whole box that's going to have a lot of different tools. It's going to have a couple seashells. It's going to have a scraper that has different ends. It's going to have some clay tools, and it's going to have a little plastic fork. You don't need to use all of those, but you can choose to use a few of those. So here you can see the scraper. This one has a little zigzag point. This one has square edges, a couple of shells, and then some different tools. Some of those tools have little rough edges on them that you could use to scrape a texture. So let's check out those tools and see how a few of them work. If I want to use the shell, I notice that the shell has these bumpy edges. I could take those bumpy edges, I'm going to zoom in again, and I could sort of press those bumpy edges into my clay tile. And it leaves a little mark. Maybe I'll do one more. And again, I have to be careful. I don't want to press too hard. I don't want to make my clay too thin. Then if I wanted, here's this edge with a little scraper. I could take this. What if I take that and I go around the edge? I want to keep my design today pretty simple because I don't have too much time to work with the clay. If I have extra clay on there, I want to pull that off, kind of roll it up so I can throw that little piece away before I put this back in the bin. And I think then I'm still going to come back in with my pencil and I'm going to use that to draw. So I like how I see this little wavy line happening. Maybe I could add some straight lines in here. Just a very simple design. Once I've created my simple design, I'm finished. So you can see I created some different patterns and different textures. I was able to draw and I practiced pinching and pulling. Once you're finished, you want to take your clay tile, flip it over on the back, hold it carefully in your hand, and you're going to write your name very carefully on the back of your tile. And then you're finished. I hope you have a wonderful day working with the clay. You will get wipes at the end of class to clean your hands. And until next time, keep on creating.